Hi everyone, this is Alan presenting Discovering Buddhism on behalf of Vajrayana Institute. Welcome, thanks for being there. Hope you're well, I hope you're warm. And if anybody is new to watching this class on YouTube, then just you want to join the class, receive the notes, just send an email to me at the email address on the chat column there, and I'll put you on the mailing list. So we're up to the third week of Samsara and Nirvana, the topic of Samsara and Nirvana. Last week we had a bit of a technical problem and we only got through probably about half the class. So sorry about that, just NBN or whatever it is. I heard that they had problems out at the Vajrayana Institute as well. I'm doing this one at home, but we'll just have to see what happens. And just to make up for what we missed last week, I'll spend a bit of time when we do the revision questions covering some of the topics that we actually missed out on last week, particularly just going quickly through the 6 root afflictions. We'll just spend a bit of time on that. I didn't get into that last week. And so we'll just try and catch up for what we missed last week. And then this week we're going to mainly look at the third noble truth and the what's called the wheel of life. It's the 12 dependent links. So this is one very graphic way of illustrating how this chain reaction of karma, our delusions and karma keep us from becoming enlightened and keep us in what they call samsara, which is this realm where we are out of control and suffering and not able to be of much use to other beings compared to what Buddha mind can be. So hopefully we'll be able to get through everything we plan to tonight. So let's just begin as we usually do. Lisa, hello, thanks for being there. Great to see you. Let's have a look at, let's just do our 5 minutes breath meditation to get ourselves in the right frame of mind for studying the Dharma. So just get comfortable. What we're doing is just watching the breath, breathing meditation, mindfulness meditation. And to do that, we need to have the body in a comfortable position, sitting, lying down, eyes can be opened or closed. And all we do is just let go of all our normal worries and concerns, conceptions, what we've been doing today and so on, and focus on very simple, incredibly simple object, which is watching ourselves breathing, the physical act of breathing. So that's so simple that the mind usually gets very bored and starts to wander about, looking for something to think about. So part of our practice is, as well as focusing on the breath, watching what we're doing. That's monitoring. It's called introspection. And we're just checking to see how we're going. Are we on the breath, or have we actually, without noticing, been distracted and gone off into a different time and place in our mind? So when we notice that, usually does happen, certainly happens to me, you just notice that distraction, let it go, and gently come back to the breath very patiently. Might have to do that many, many times. All right, so get comfortable and we'll do our practice. Okay, so first thing is to just have a sense of coming into our body, coming into what's happening in the mind, letting go of our busy day or whatever's happened today. moment to reflect on how lucky we are, fortunate to be able to come together and study the Dharma, incredible Buddhist teachings, do some practice together. Our motive is not purely for our own benefit, but we want to develop our minds in order to help others. And the big picture of that is to become a fully awakened being, become a Buddha ourselves, so that then we can be of maximum benefit to all other beings. Now we just start with the body, make sure we're comfortable. The body's balanced evenly on the chair or the floor. Spine is straight, shoulders relaxed. And we just feel any tension in the body. We can actually breathe out, using the out breath to let go any tightness we find in the body. Also, we can use the out breath to breathe out any busyness in the mind, any distractions. And gradually, we just bring our attention to the natural rhythm of the breath. Nothing to change, nothing to judge. Watching the rhythm of the body with each breath. Just staying with the breath, being alert for when the mind is distracted by thoughts. Just notice that when it happens. Just gently let go of that distracting thought and come back to the breath. Following each breath all the way into the body and all the way out of the body, one breath at a time. just relax. Okay, so we've got the notes I sent out, I think, yesterday or the day before, and just 3 questions there that cover basically what we missed last week. Just having a look at those revision questions. The first one, what is a root affliction? So just to recap, the reason that we are, first of all, the definition of samsara is basically being in a situation where we're either dissatisfied or suffering. First noble truth the Buddha taught was that we are in a natural state, or unenlightened state, is that of suffering. Even though we may not be the usual sort of image of suffering where people are physically in pain. We may not have any obvious diseases, but there's a very subtle form of suffering. First of all, it could be mental discontent. That's probably the definition of suffering covers not just the obvious diseases, aging, but also the mental dissatisfaction, the depression, the anxiety, things that disturb our minds. And then the really subtle type of suffering, we're told, the things that we normally go to for pleasure. We normally look for pleasant sounds, sights, tastes, physical sensations, these things that give us some temporary relief, some temporary easing of whatever stress we're going through. But ultimately, we're told, as the Buddha says, that these, all they're doing is just like a Panadol relieving a headache. They're just stopping the symptoms for a little while, and eventually will come back. The original causes are still there, and those original causes are these root afflictions, these wrong ways of thinking. So root afflictions, one term, Lama Zopa likes to call them disturbing thoughts. Rabina likes to call them delusions. I think probably the word delusions is more common than afflictions in most of the commentaries, particularly by Westerners. I think I like the word delusions better. So they're just things, they're mental attitudes, not physical things. Lama Yeshe says they're emotions that disturb the mind. So they cover things like anger, probably most physically obvious sort of delusion. People getting, could be us or somebody else getting extremely angry, you can see that. More subtle and probably much more powerful one is attachment. We're going to look at that one closely tonight. We can do a meditation on attachment. And then there are things like pride and wrong views and so on. So just quickly, the second question is, what are these 6 root afflictions? So just quickly, you've got your notes from last week, which you can always, I think because of this unreliable internet connection, it's great to have, I'm giving you quite long notes, and it's just so that if we do have an interruption, you can just check what we haven't covered in the notes. So these root delusions, the first one, attachment, just very briefly on that. Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa said they are the root of all our, attachment is the root of all our problems. It sort of underlines all the other mental problems we've got, mental and physical. They're the cause of all our mental and physical problems. But what we need to do is, it's said to be like oil in a rag. It's very hard to actually remove. It's quite hard to detect attachment. It's not the meaning is not the same as in English when we say we're very attached to our loved ones, our pets, our parents. We're actually talking more about love there. But this type of attachment, this meaning, is something that we're actually looking for something need in ourselves. It's about wanting to satisfy something within ourselves rather than being concerned about the other person or thing. So the underlying cause of attachment, the very profound cause, is that we mistake how things exist, particularly how we exist. We've got this idea that above and beyond this physical body and our mental thoughts, there is this person, this self that is very concrete, and we have to protect the cost of all other beings, and that it exists. We totally believe in it, but when we analyze and look deeper, we can't find it. It's what it is. It's just a projection. It's a label on top of the physical and mental makeup of our existence. We put this sort of icing on the top. It's not there. So that's where the problems arise. I think we've got this person that needs everlasting type of person that needs to be protected, and from that all the other delusions arise: aggression, desire, jealousy, and so on. So Lama Yeshe says, if you see how attachment works, and it takes quite a lot of work, using our reasoning, analytical meditation, and so on, then the mind can become very powerful because it can see how attachment's working to undermine our peace of mind and so on, and we can just let go, have a more relaxed and peaceful life. So Robina describes this attachment as wanting everything to go nicely, everything to be nice, things going our way. And when things don't, we want people to say nice things, we want nice friends, we want a lovely house, we want all the things that physical, what they call the 8 worldly dharmas, all the sort of things that in everyday life the outside world is encouraging us to use and have, telling us, promising that this is going to make us happy. So when we don't get things don't go our way, maybe somebody criticizes us, even something like finding a queue at the supermarket when we want to just whip through, and the noise from the neighbor's leaf blower. So it could be something quite trivial, and we're just looking at the mind, how it freaks out, how it just flips, just gets. So what happens is anger arises. It may not be physical anger, it could be just annoyance, maybe no manifestations, but there's this feeling that discontent because we didn't get what we want. Things didn't go the right way. It's very subtle attachment. It's slow burning. It's like anger's the opposite, says to be like fire, and like a bushfire, just burns up all the good karma and imprints in our mind. Attachment is something that's much more hard to detect and harder to remove. And of course, they're interrelated, as I've just sort of said. So if we don't get what we want, what we're attached to, we can get angry, and we can also have this feeling that something's missing. Could be just that underlying thing that I need. Something in my life is not right, not missing, and this feeling that we're not whole. There's something there that we need to fill in. So that's moving along properly a bit quicker. Anger, I've just covered. Anger destroys our peace of mind, and how quickly it can work to, if we ever had a falling out with an old friend, how quickly sometimes the friendship can end by just a word of anger or a moment of disagreement. It's amazing how powerful anger can be. So the advice in the Buddhist teachings is that we should not express anger. We should work with it. So it goes, some Western psychology says that we should express anger. It's very healthy. None of the teachings say that's a good idea, because by expressing it, we're probably going to hurt either us, other people, by words or actions. And there's also the imprint that it makes on our mind. We develop this habit of expressing anger. So that's the karmic aspect. Everything we do, say, think, makes some imprint on our mind stream. And that those karmic seeds can, if they're negative actions or thoughts or words, then they're going to produce negative results later on. So that's attachment, anger, and ignorance. These are said to be like the three king delusions. Ignorance is the first type, which I've just mentioned when I talked about attachment, this underlying belief that there is a inherent existing self that needs to be protected. It's usually an unconscious thing. It will come, this sense of self can arise, particularly when we're angry, or can arise when we're receiving praise. So that's the what we have to counter that. We have to use analytical reasoning and gradually loosen the hold of this grasping of the idea of an innate, inherent self. Not the wrong one. Of the other extreme is to say there's no self at all, nothing exists, including we don't exist. So that's also the wrong view. So there's no inherent eternal self, and there's no, and the opposite is to say there's no self at all. So the middle way, Buddhist middle way, is that there is a merely labeled self that we put on top of the aggregates, the collection of mind and body. So that's a whole big topic. Just the other type of ignorance is unable to grasp it, say the basic teachings, say that there is no such thing as karma, Four Noble Truths are nonsense, the idea of refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha is nonsense. So that's another type of ignorance that can undermine practice. In fact, if we've got that sort of ignorance, we probably wouldn't be even studying Buddhism. So the pride is the next one. Pride, this idea of an inflated self, it's building on this idea that there is a real, inherent, eternal self there, and that, but also that we're actually better, smarter, could be more realized, a better Buddhist than other people. So we're comparing ourselves to others and putting ourselves above others. So some of the examples that His Holiness has used are that we're better looking, we're more generous, we're from a better country than the other person. Sort of extreme idea where nationalism and patriotism can go the wrong way. And then sometimes we're proud of being proud. We like the idea of being proud. We have this very inflated ego, sense of self. Makes it very hard to learn and to be open. The remedy is to realize how little we know, how much there is to know, and to study karma and realize when we look at the teachings on karma, they're told that there are so many karmic seeds on our mind stream that need to be purified, not just from this life, from previous lives, because we've been acting under delusions for so many infinite lifetime. We've got a lot of mind stream that needs to be purified, negative thoughts that need to be purified. So also His Holiness Dalai Lama stresses that pride is different to self-confidence. Self-confidence is very important, he says, particularly for us Westerners who tend to have quite a low view of ourselves, quite common, low self-esteem, low self-confidence. So the idea of self-confidence is that we can achieve things that we set our mind to. We have this incredible potential. So self-confidence, he said, is really important, not just in everyday life, just to make progress in our career and so on, but also very important to our practice, to feel that we have ability to make progress, to put the teachings into action. So this is different to the pride where we mistakenly believe that we are already very superior and smart and above other people. Next one is doubt, called deluded doubt. So this is the doubt where we can't really decide whether the Buddhist teachings are correct or not. So it's like said to be when the mind is too pointed. So we can see some truth in things like the teachings on karma and the Triple Gem, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, but then the mind is always saying, well, maybe not, or maybe not. So we can never actually go forward and trust our innate wisdom and say, this, there is such a thing as karma. After we study the teachings, do some meditation, we need to be able to feel, let go of doubt and trust our wisdom, trust the great wisdom of the teachings and the teachers. Also, this is distinguished from when we're starting off. Studying the teachings, we need to be very careful to make sure that the teacher is a qualified teacher and the teachings are genuine. So certainly at the beginning of our spiritual journey, we need to check that what we're getting is authentic. That's good doubt, where we check out. The Buddha said, check the teachings with your own reasoning and wisdom, like a goldsmith would check whether what looks to be gold is real gold or fake gold. So you need to be very careful to check. So that's a good form of doubt. The other one is afflictive views. Afflictive views, I've already mentioned one of them, this innate type of feeling that there is definitely this inherent eternal self, which on examination we find it's not existing at all. We can't find it in the physical body. We can't find it in all the mental components of our existence. So that's the one of the different types of afflictive views. So there are different types, but that's the underlying strongest one that holds us back the most. So that's okay. So we've still got one more question. Looking at the revision questions, what are the two types of counter forces to the affliction? So this is how these afflictions or delusions, fortunately, are dependent on causes and conditions. They have no firm base. Okay, they're based on further delusions, and so by practicing the antidotes, for example, instead of getting angry, we start to develop the habit of patience, learning to deal with difficult people, difficult situations in a calm way. So that's one of the many antidotes to anger or dissatisfaction. So there are these counter forces that can forever, if they're applied consistently over a graduated path towards enlightenment, then we can eliminate them permanently. So these counter forces could be specific or long-term. So the long-term one, again, is understanding the wisdom, realizing the emptiness of the self, how we exist ourselves, and external phenomena, that it's all dependent on causes and conditions, and causes and conditions that are constantly changing. So that helps us loosen this grasping of the outside existence and grasping at this idea of self. So that's the long-term solution. And then there are these specific practices to deal with different delusions. So I've got them listed in the notes from last week. So one of the meditations we're going to do at the end of the practice is on attachment. We can see that there are different antidotes or counterforces to attachment. One is impermanence. If we attach to a physical thing such as our clothing or a beautiful car or something, we only have to notice how things change from being what appears to be perfect, and they age and deteriorate. Our body is another good example. So impermanence is a good antidote, a good counterforce. The other thing is to contemplate on the faults of the delusion. And we're going to do that in the practice. The faults of attachment, how it actually disturbs our mind when we're separated from the thing we're attached to. That pain or that dissatisfaction when we can't get or hold on to what we want. We can't keep it. Because what we're attached to will be impermanent, then we're going to have to let go of it eventually. So that's pretty quickly just covering some of most of the topics from last week. And so if you just want to go back and you can have it, just look back over the notes from last week to give you a bit more detail about that. So this week, we're going to look at a bit more about the idea of these delusions and how they embed themselves or imprint themselves on our mind and cause the karmic seeds that they cause, which cause later we'll experience them later on. So that involves the concept of karma and this idea of having seeds on the mind stream. So then we're going to look at, so what we've been doing is looking at the first two noble truths. We've been looking at the truth of suffering, which we really did in the first lesson, first class. Last week, basically, the causes, these delusions or afflictions that are very much in our mind stream now and have been accumulating over many infinite past lives, and the effect they have on our mind stream, the karmic imprints. So this is the idea of causes of our suffering. The causes are there, wrong ways of thinking, which is just basically what a delusion is, and the effect of that, and the fact that the karma will tend to repeat these, end up being in a cycle, repeating these negative actions, habitual negative actions. So we need to recognize they're happening. And the third noble truth is telling us that we're actually able, if we can tackle the causes, then we can actually end these the state that we're in, samsara. We can actually become completely free of this uncontrolled cycle of suffering and rebirth. Because we're out of control in our unenlightened state of mind, then we're going to be thrown into different forms of existence in the future, as we have been in the past. This time, we've got a human body. We're very lucky. And so we've got the opportunity now in this incredible human body with the human brain to start looking at the teachings that we've come across, these infallible Buddhist teachings, and starting to apply the remedies and getting ourselves out of this samsaric situation we're in. So the third noble truth, true cessations. Think. I'll just quote. I think this is the Dalai Lama. If we think of our mind under the control of attachment, hatred, and ignorance as being bound and not free, then nirvana is the unbinding of the mind, a release from such bondage into freedom. So this, just by seeing that these afflictions or delusions can be overcome, and then taking steps to implement the teachings so that we do overcome them. That's the third noble truth. Seeing that there's a way out, true cessation, And then the fourth noble truth is the true path, where we actually learn how the remedy, the medicine to but this disease, which is a delusion, now we've been told that there is a remedy. So we to actually put that knowledge that there is a remedy into a very deep part of our mind takes quite a bit of doing to be convinced that they are treatable, these delusions and karma. So one of the ways to do that is to do analytical meditation, such as meditate on the causes of attachment, meditation on the causes of anger, and then think of the disadvantages of them, how they upset the mind, and then thinking and actually meditating on the ways to counter those afflictions, how important patience is, for example, in controlling anger. So we need to do that in the quietness of meditation. Very difficult to practice patience if we're very angry. So it's good to take stock of the things that make us upset or angry when we're in a quiet state of mind, and then, having done that practice, we can, when the situation arrives at the job, or when we meet the person or the thing that makes us angry, we've actually got some practice to draw on from our meditation, and we've got some distance between the cause and the effect. The mind has been sort of buffered by having done that practice in a quiet space. So the 12 links of dependent origination. So this incredible teaching is another way of looking at how these afflictions or delusions keep us from being a liberated being, or being a Buddha being, how it locks us in. So it's incredibly powerful practice. It's said to be 12 links of dependent origination is illustrated on what they call the wheel of life. The wheel of life, which is the picture that is in the notes on the last page. If you manage, you don't have to print it out, but it's a very beautiful. It's beautiful and frightening. So it's a very good representation of what's called the wheel of life, where they've got this monster, which is Yama, the Lord of Death, holding this circle, which is called the wheel of life. And within that circle are these different pictures, representations. The outside particularly has 12 little pictures. We're going to go through it and look at them. And that wheel shows us how one thing leads to another to keep us in this cycle of existence, circle of rebirth, death, rebirth, death, old age, sickness, death, and rebirth. You can start and stop at any point, and how those links lead from one to the other. So we're going to have a look at that. So this is said to be more. It's the concept of beings who have got some more capability than others. You said this is for people with more capability, like the intermediate practicing being. So I find it very powerful. I don't think I'm particularly high practitioner or even an intermediate practicing being, but when you look at the representation and the explanation, it can be quite frightening. It's powerful to see how it's the mechanics of how we are trapped until we start to practice in what they call samsara, or the cycle of samsara, rebirth. So, just looking at it's giving an eye on the time. So we're going to just, if you've got your picture there, you can just sort of keep it on the side. So I'm just going to sort of briefly explain what each of those pictures are. And so the first one, just a general comment first. The Wheel of Life is usually, if you ever go to a monastery, Tibetan monastery, like in India, there's Sera Monastery in the south of India, and the monastery, there's usually more than one monastery, but outside the main door of most Tibetan monasteries, apparently traditionally in Tibet as well, they usually have a mural of the 12 links, the Wheel of Life, and what it is just reminding you of our situation. It's really the first, second, and third, all the noble truths in one picture. So before you go into the temple, you see this wonderful reminder of our situation on the Wheel of Life. There is actually, that's interesting, I've just noticed that the picture I got was from BuddhaNet, which is a website on the internet, BuddhaNet. And if you're lucky, I didn't manage to do it, but there is actually on BuddhaNet a link. If you just search for Wheel of Life and you click on this link, the wheel actually moves. You can actually have an interactive experience with the software they've got there. When I tried to do it this time, it didn't work. Last year when I was looking at it, it did work. But so BuddhaNet, the actual web link, unfortunately, hasn't been printed out on my copy. So I might make sure it's in the notes next week. So, and I'll have another go at making it work. So let's just look at the actual Wheel of Life. Now we start off with the top of the outside rim of the wheel. And the first representation is ignorance. So you can see a blind old woman walking along with a cane, just slightly to the right of the mouth of the Lord of Death. So this is this picture illustrates ignorance. So there's the ultimate, the profound meaning of ignorance here is what's being referred to, the ignorance of not understanding the emptiness of inherent existence of all things, and the dependent nature of self and the outside world, self and things. So it's His Holiness the Dharma says, quote, "It is a moment of the innate ignorance grasping the person as inherent existence that leads to rebirth in samsara." So this has many meanings, but I think His Holiness is referring to the moment before conception when our mind is looking for a place of rebirth and we are drawn towards our parents, the male and female parent, and we are actually attached to the parents, and we become the consciousness enters the womb. So we'll come back to the actual breakdown of what I just said. So it's basically the ultimate form of being reborn is ignorance. Lama Zopa says it's a bit like the originator, ignorance, a bit like the farmer, the creator of samsara, the farmer. So he uses quite a few agricultural similes where the farmer is ignorant, and then karma is like the field that the farmer is ploughing. So that's the second. If you look at the second picture on the outside, it's a potter making a pot, and this represents karma, action. The potter is busy creating a pot out of clay and whatever else is needed to make a pot. So this represents our actions of body, speech, and mind that plants seeds. So the actions of body, speech, and mind are the actions, and those actions will actually put seeds into the ground. So if you think of karma as the field, and the effect of those actions are the seeds that actually go in, which we'll come to later. So it's the karma that is motivated by ignorance, because remember, these delusions are kind of our driving force. If we're acting under misapprehensions, then we're driven by those ignorant thoughts, concepts, and so our actions of body, speech, and mind are going to be a result of that. So from those karmic actions, we will receive various rebirths: happy rebirth, which is the one we've got now in our human body; suffering rebirth, could be in one of the lower realms; suffering rebirth could be in an animal realm, could be in the upper realm, where we're experiencing great pleasure. We're still in samsara, but we haven't been yet liberated. So this is all coming, those rebirths are coming as a result of karma. This next one is the field, the consciousness. So we've got a monkey there, you can see leaping around, the third picture. So that represents consciousness. So the consciousness being the cause, the consciousness is necessary for when the actions that we do, body, speech, and mind, leave an imprint on the consciousness or the mind stream. So that's the cause and effect aspect. I'll read you what Lama Zopa says. The consciousness on which the karma leaves an imprint, conscious being our mind stream, is like the seed, because the seed holds all the potential. One small seed holds all the potential. The trunk, the tree, all the billions and billions of leaves, branches, flowers, fruit, all that potential is held by the seed. So one tiny seed, we know, can give rise to a huge oak tree or whatever the tree is. So it doesn't have to be a big seed to have a big effect. That's the idea of karmic seeds on a mind stream. And so these, I think one quite interesting what would you call it, similarity or simile. Robert Thurman says the seeds of our actions put imprints on our mental DNA. DNA we understand as being like the blueprint for our body. So if we take that concept of DNA as a mind, with a mind, these non-physical imprints of our actions, body, speech, and mind, leave these non-physical DNA remnants on the mind stream. I found that quite an interesting concept, mental DNA. So from the imprint of our actions come various positive and mental experiences. Next is the fourth link, which is called name and form. A person rowing a boat across a river or an ocean there. So this is referring to our collection of body and mind. So it's said that we have 5 aggregates that make up this being that we call ourselves. So 4 of them are mental and 1 is physical. The 5th one is physical. So these different activities of mind, discrimination, feeling, one of them sense feeling, discrimination, compositional factions, and consciousness. So these different aspects of our mind form the mental, non-physical aspect of who we are, and then there's the body. So this, we need a body and the 5 aggregates to be able to cross from one life to the next. Now, so the form is the beginning. One aspect of the form is the embryo that begins when fertilization takes place in the womb. And then from that conception, moment of conception, mother and father's two cells joined together, the time of conception, and then the mental aggregates follow. That's the Buddhist explanation of rebirth. That when conception happens in the womb, then the mental remnants from the previous life, from the being that enters the womb, then those mental aggregates take form, take root, or how would you describe it? They as long as the physical seed becomes joined, then the mental aggregates, join the physical seed. So that's the beginning. That's birth. That's the time of conception. So next one, 6 sense powers. So this is generated by there's a house there with windows. So this is the potential for the 5 senses to take root. This is basically talking about how the embryo develops in the womb, and these different capacities, mental capacities, start to develop. The embryo develops some sort of sense consciousness. Different types of consciousness develop in that state. So number 6 is contact. So this contact is about the actual sexual union of the male and female, which is necessary part of the conception, beginning of the conception, I suppose. So this is where the sense powers are attracted to it, our innate sort of attachment that we talked about earlier on is going to be attracted to or repelled by what it sees or what it encounters. So when we're talking about rebirth, then there's a attraction. The being from the previous life, which is usually called the bardo being, can apprehend the couple that's going to be their parents in the future having sexual union, and it's attracted to that. That's said to be the thing that propels the bardo being into the embryo and at the time of conception. So that's the contact moment, and then the next one is feeling. So feeling basically refers to the sense powers. So we've got 5 senses, and they also include consciousness. So these feelings can be pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. It doesn't really refer to emotion, but it refers to the feeling of the sense powers, whether it's a pleasant feeling, could be sensory, could be eye consciousness, could be sound, and where we actually discriminate between what's pleasant, what's not pleasant. So the next one is craving, and that's illustrated by a man drinking. And so it's sort of an extreme example of craving. The man, by seeing the alcohol, that's the previous link, feeling maybe thirsty or attracted to the alcohol, and then wanting more of it. So this is the craving. It's like not wanting to be separated from the object. And they give the example of a death consciousness, if we're ordinary being, not wanting to leave the body, not wanting to leave our possessions, not wanting to leave our loved ones. That feeling that when we have to actually leave everything at the time of death, which we've looked at in some death meditation we've done earlier. So all the physical things in our world, our relatives, our body, even our loved ones, and all our possessions, we have to leave. And the only thing we're left with is our mind, the mind stream. So that's where our practice on developing our mind, our mental capacities, and our positive imprints on the mind, that's what will help. Next one is grasping, the monkey plucking fruit from a tree. So that's number 9. That's clinging. So craving and clinging are both forms of attachment. Craving is wanting the object, and the grasping is holding on, not wanting to hold, not wanting it to leave, not wanting the desirable object to be held forever. We want it. We don't want to leave it. So this is again a different form of attachment where we put too much expectation on what we're attracted to. We think it's going to actually satisfy us, but it can't, because it's an impermanent phenomena. Craving, grasping. So existence is the result of the craving and grasping. It needs to be illustrated by a pregnant woman there. It's hard to see in the picture that she is pregnant, but anyway, she is. So that's number 10, existence. So by craving, this is wanting to take rebirth, wanting to exist in that material sense, the ripening of the karmic seed that's going to produce the next life. So then the next one is 11, rebirth. There's actually a picture, I think, a woman giving birth there. So this is the full ripening of wanting to exist. So the embryo is born into the world, and as soon as the birth happens, then the aging process happens. So as soon as the baby is born, or the embryo, then the clock is ticking towards the end of that being's life. Then the last one, number 12, is aging and death. First carrying a corpse on their back. It's right up the top there on the left-hand side. So this is the end of the cycle, where the being, because the being is in samsara, they're going to have to die. So everything born has to die in this cyclic existence, where the being has to leave the body and all physical things, and then depending on their practice, if it's the person is a practitioner, they might be able to use their practice to have an auspicious rebirth. If they're a very high practitioner, auspicious rebirth, particularly, it's another human life where we can continue our practice. And if they're very high practitioner, like a bodhisattva, they can actually use the death process to develop their minds and go into a liberation or Buddhahood, where they will never be reborn again. So they become enlightened beings or liberated beings at that moment. Okay, so that's sort of roughly the 12 links, and I'll say a bit more about the interpretation of it next week, and how sometimes the Buddha's teachings start at the ignorance as the beginning, and sometimes the teachings are given from backwards, from death back. What caused the person to die, because they were born, and what caused them to be born, the imprints on the mind wanting to have another life, and the effect of karma, deciding where they're going to have the next life, and so on. So it's possible for different points in the wheel of life to be the beginning or end of the teaching, of different, depending on the aim of the teacher and the teaching. I think probably at this stage it would be good if we just now move to our meditation, which is going to be on attachment, said to be the main driver of our causes of our karmic afflictions and delusions. So this particular practice we do quite often at VI for our drop-in meditation. Excuse me while I just get my notes. Here we are. And have a short drink of water. So this meditation, it's called Dealing with Attachment. This more formal type of definition of attachment is a mental function or activity that sees a contaminated object as attractive and wishes to acquire it. That's the kind of legal definition. So contaminated means things that arise from our afflictions and karma, how we view things. And as unenlightened beings, it means just about everything in our world. Okay, so probably the easiest example is if we're attracted to a person, and what we're doing is we see that person through our karmic view as very beautiful. In fact, if it's strong attachment, we see only the good qualities of that person. We exaggerate the good quality of that person, or could be a thing. Attachment can happen to physical objects as well. And then we can project non-existent good qualities. So we can either exaggerate that what there are good qualities, that person could be very beautiful, but we could exaggerate that and see them as completely perfect. Or we can actually we can see good qualities there that actually aren't there. And on top of that, then we believe that they truly exist. They're not coming from our own mental projection. We believe that they exist out there, and we grasp onto that. That person is completely perfect, and I want that person or that thing. So it said this particular practice it's probably easier if we use example of a person. Probably think of people, maybe if a time when we were younger, when we fell in love with somebody and then we fell out of love with someone. That could be quite a helpful situation in this particular practice to recall. But it doesn't have to be a person. We could perhaps have more attachment to things. Could be a car or some sort of house or clothing, whatever. So there is, it's said that attachment is the near enemy. It's the near enemy of loving kindness. So, of course, usually particularly if it's a person, there is some love there. We actually have some concern for the person, but the attachment side of it is usually concerned with my needs. That person's going to fulfill my needs. Whereas love is a very unselfish concern with the other person's needs. So it's said that if we're unenlightened beings, all our experience of love will actually be mixed with attachment until we can actually purify the attachment aspect. When we become a bodhisattva or a Buddha, then we'll have overcome attachment. Until that happens, most love will be mixed with attachment. So the other thing is some misconception would be that if we're not attached, then we're going to be cold and indifferent. So that's a misinterpretation of the teachings on attachment. So it means that the life will be boring if we overcome attachment. But actually, if the mind is relaxed and not attached, then we can actually be happier. We can actually see things in a much more clear light, including the needs of the other person. There's less ups and downs, less disappointment, and we can actually function and much better without this up and down attached mind. So we also contemplated, in the practice, we contemplate the faults of attachment, particularly by looking at how we felt when we remember when we were attached to a particular person or thing, and we can just look in a very detached way, or partial way, how we had these ups and downs, how it affected our peace of mind, how we got very excited, and perhaps how we saw the person as completely 100% perfect, and then we didn't want to be separated from them, and then of course we did have to be separated. So there was this feeling of disturbance, disappointment when the affair or the relationship ended. So we've got to actually acknowledge that the mind suffered when we couldn't get what we want for whatever reason. Could be an unhappy state of mind. So then how to deal, the antidotes, the different antidotes to attachment. One is looking at impermanence of the thing or person. And if it's a person, we can contemplate that person as an old person. Another way is to look at the insides of the person, the physical, the intestines, the impure parts of the body. That's a very powerful way of letting go of attachment. The other one is meditation on death, that we eventually will have to leave everything we're attached to, including our body. And that certainty, the more we acquaint ourselves with letting go of the attached mind exaggerates, then the quieter and better and more auspicious death process we'll have, the easier it will be to let go. The last one is the meditation on emptiness, where we contemplate how the thing that we're attached to exists, that the person or thing is just a construction of physical, mental aggregates. There's nothing inherently existent in the air. They're dependent on causes and conditions. The causes and conditions are constantly changing, so this thing that we're attached to will be constantly changing. There's nothing we can really hold on to. So this is the emptiness aspect of the thing that we're attached to, the emptiness aspect of ourselves who are being attached, and so we contemplate this how things actually exist, which is dependent, not independent. Okay, so that's enough there. Just sort of we may not have time to go through all the antidotes but we'll do our best for that. So just get comfortable, and we'll begin our practice on dealing with attachment. Okay, so we just come into our body, and just a few moments of mindfulness of the breath to calm the mind. Just bringing our attention inwards. So we begin our meditation on dealing with attachment by bringing to mind a person who we were physically or emotionally attracted to, and preferably the person we're no longer physically attracted to, that same person. So we're looking at the beginning and end of a a period of attachment to a person. Could have been a relationship, could have been just a short period of attachment and then letting go. So we could be our first love. So first of all, we recall our state of mind. Can we recall how excited the mind was? How unsettled? Can we recall whether the mind was peaceful or agitated? Probably agitated. How our view of that person was that they were 100% good, only good qualities were there. How preoccupied we were with our emotions, our attachment, our feelings to that person. How we had very little ability to think of others. We're so obsessed, preoccupied with that person, not wanting to be separated, physically or even thinking about the person. Then recalling when we had to be separated from that person for short term, or perhaps when the relationship ended and we had to leave that person for whatever reason, that feeling of separation, unhappiness, perhaps depression, perhaps even anger. We saw that separation as caused by the other person, how our mind was turned from attachment to anger, perhaps. Maybe even a wish to harm that person. So that's the meditation where we just notice how our mind was up and down, preoccupied, unclear, exaggerating the situation. And so then one of the antidotes to attachment is meditating on impermanence. Thinking that person we attach to, thinking that person as an old person, no longer beautiful. Can we still feel that attachment? Sometimes we can recall how shocked we were when we see old friends and notice how they've aged. Another way is to think of that person as they are on the inside out. The person, the physical body is made up of organs, blood, bones, marrow, waste products, impure substances, looking beyond the skin to what's actually that person is composed of on the inside. Collection of parts. Another way of dealing with attachment to either persons or objects or situations is that everything we're attached to now, at the time of death, will have to leave. So death is certain, the time of death is uncertain. At that time, we need to separate from friends, from family, loved ones, pets, our possessions, our houses, our wealth, our enjoyments, our routines, and our body, even our body. We spend our whole life looking after it. We'll have to leave the body. The only thing that can help the time of death is our mind, our state of mind. The less attached state of mind can let go or have an easy death, auspicious death, and a good rebirth. Another antidote or way of dealing with attachment is to notice how the object or person we're attached to exists. If it's a person, think first of all, what am I attached to? Is there anything physically, inherently existing there? Can we see, when we examine closely, anything on top of the aggregates of body, all the cells of the body, the bones, the organs, the skin, the collection, and then the mental aggregates, different aspects of the mind. There's nothing we can hold on to. There's just a collection of causes and conditions. Then we look at ourselves, that being that is attached, the I that is in love, and that needs this or that. We find the self, it appears to be inherently, eternally existing there. Until we examine, look deeply, we can't find it. Can't find it in the physical body. In the mind, it's just a collection of continuous, ever-changing feelings, experiences, mental processes. This me, this me that is attached, is just a label. The person that we are attached to is also a label. A label that we put on a collection of ever-changing causes and conditions. So the conclusion is the shortcomings of the attached mind, ultimately the cause of all our suffering, the first noble truth. By being attached, we suffer of pain of having to let go, disappointment, loss, disturbed state of mind. So practicing less attachment helps us to live a more peaceful life. Less attachment to pleasures, less attachment to our own self-satisfaction, less expectations, accepting things as they are, impermanent, changing, without any inherent essence to hold on to. Less dissatisfaction. By being less attached, our mind is more easily able to develop loving kindness and compassion. By recognizing how we are driven by attachment, we can feel compassion for all other unenlightened beings, sentient beings, in the same situation, also suffering in samsara, the desire realm, pervaded by attachment, the realm that we're in at the moment, sharing that compassion for all beings who are numberless like us. Wanting happiness like us, not wanting suffering, but experiencing suffering unwantedly, without wanting it, they experience it like us. So we can just dedicate any positive merit from this practice towards our development of non-attachment, letting go of the self, letting go of the I, developing wisdom and compassion. Reading Lama Zopa's special dedication, however many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed from all sickness. May all the sickness, without exception, of all transmigrating beings never occur again. May all wars or sickness or famine, torture or poverty, economic problems in the world or dangers of earth, water, fire and wind be pacified immediately. May perfect peace and happiness prevail in everyone's hearts and lives. May the Buddha Dharma last a long time. May sentient beings in the world meet the Buddha Dharma and achieve enlightenment as quickly as possible, dedicating to that. Okay, so that's it for tonight. Thanks so much for being there. Great to see you out there. I hope you have an excellent night and a really safe and peaceful week. And look forward to seeing you next week at the same time. Okay, take care. Okay, see you next time.